meeting. For the record, I'm going to state that we are following all COVID-19 restrictions. We call the meeting to order, and the first thing on is the Pledge of Allegiance. We all stand. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, do we have a volunteer from the audience for invocation? Short prayer. If not, then I think maybe we could all just bow our heads with about 30 seconds of silence. Okay, thank you. First thing on the docket is the citizens' comment period. If you would like to speak on anything concerning the county, come forward to the podium and give your name and address for the record, please.
When I make usage, it's got a few comments. These are my opinions, my concerns, no one else's. It is obvious to me that all these minutes and programs got to go through advertisement. It's extremely expensive. Like planning commission meeting. That meeting cost the citizen at least over $2,000. It's ridiculous to your ideas in the sand and say, well, it's only $800. No. Look at the rest of the cost that's taking place to have one of these hearings. That's my first concern. And if y'all decide to do away with the ordinances, you will have a public hearing every month, maybe 2 or 3. This is opening up Pandora's box to another ending of discussions and concerns of citizens. When you can come directly to the board about any other support of the citizens' concerns, their freedoms, their protection of our communities, their homes, it is not feasible. We've got to have standards, law and order. All you got to do is look around what's happening in our country, and you'll see when we do away with the rules and regulations, the pure chaos. I don't want to see that here in the county. Number 2, why I'm opposed to it. Like I said, the citizens in that area, your home, my home, neighbor's home, under the proposal, will have absolutely no input on what is going on. I don't, and for saying we want to change the road, because I don't like it. We've had, in the last decade, people come up want to change road name because it couldn't get along with its neighbor. Thank goodness we had these ordinance, place. It went nowhere, which is right. We've got to have law and order. So when we turn our backs on the citizens, it's hard for me to understand. At the board planning commission meeting, several questions that why isn't people attending or why didn't attend these meetings? So I've talked to some people in the county, in the area. Why didn't you attend these meetings? Did they question? Came back. I don't want to say anything that will paint me as a racist, which I'm not. And so I would object that altogether. Second reason, if I do say something, then you have the people out of the county, God knows where they come from, on your front door, destroying your property, which is happening throughout the United States, without any exception. You got to have law and order. And you got to have people willing to stand up in the community, and not be intimidated, being scared to speak up. So I encourage people, I think there bound to be some way, somehow, some rules and regulations and some things that we can put in place where a road name can be changed by doing away with the ordinance under certain reasonable circumstances. I don't like the word like hanging tree. We used to have what we call in the Northern Mountains hanging tree, which was a weeping willow tree. I don't know how many have seen a weeping willow tree, but they are beautiful trees. Well, basically, those shrubs. Their stems come up and go back down to the ground, and flower is outstanding. We used to call them hanging tree. That is my experience with the word hanging tree up in the mountains. So I'm going to encourage you, for goodness sakes, take your time and look and see what can be done, like changing the ordinances of the county on the road name changes. I can see it now. With one influential, I don't care whoever, whether this is name or not, there's one coming before the board, then they start shaking their boots. Because this is what's happening in my country when people like Bloomberg now control the country. We've got to have law, we've got to have rules and regulations to follow. I do not oppose changing any road, but I want it done properly and with the support of the community. So look at the way different ways you can change the road name by destroying what we have.
Thank you. Is anybody else who would like to speak?
My name's David Evers, live at 29273 Unity Road, Sarah, Virginia. I want to talk about a little bit of your actions y'all did last month, delinquent taxes. I mean, we wrote off a little over $200,000, if I understand, trash. It was just fine, that's 1% on the tax rate, if I ain't mistaken, if we collected that. What are we doing to collect our delinquent taxes, which right now is $2,044,082.46 of our real estate personal property. That is not counting our delinquent trash debt. My question is, what are we doing to collect that? And, you know, for us taxpayers who are making our payments and stuff, it's kind of spitting our face that other people are not paying theirs and nothing's being done. So that's just my comment. Thank you.
Anybody else?
Good evening. My name is Warren Simmons, and I live at 27 South Parkway Court. And I'd just like to come forward tonight to thank Mr. Johnson, members of his staff who were assisted us during misfortune a few weeks ago. I'd also like to thank Sheriff White, his department, for checking on us almost daily. And I know a lot of his people spend nights and weekends in the area trying to keep things safe and secure. We just want to say thank you to the county for the things they've done. And, we really appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Anybody else?
How's everybody? My name's Alfred Cherry. I just come to you with a small concern. One of my employees at the Fresh Start Center, she stays in board, she's secretary. She's a little concerned about closure 671 in the back roads. And she said they're going downhill very quick as far as deteriorating. And I just like to bring that to your attention and see if maybe something can be looked at, because she has to travel those roads, the back roads around to get to the Fresh Start Center in Hunterdale every day, and I worry about her safety. When she brought it to me as concerned, I said I will be here tonight and I will speak on it. So I'm a man of my word, so I did speak on it tonight, so it could. And I will go to DMV also, but you were the first members that I saw tonight, so I'll make sure that I followed through on what I said I was going to do. Okay, thank you.
Thank you, sir. All right, anybody else?
Hello, I'm Sherry Watts, 22320 Southampton Parkway, Portland, Virginia. I'd like to jump on part of what he's talking about the taxes and the lack thereof of the delinquent notices that would have went out or should have went out for the trash fee. This has been a different year. Some of us are essential employees and busy as all get out. Some people may not even have a job. But I know that the fee is due in March. I know that it was extended until the end of May. And last week, just because I forgot about it, was one of those people that got one of the tax collection. My name evidently was sent over for that. My question is, if this would have been last year, how long would it have been before my name would have been sent over to a tax collection agency? This is about, what, 8 weeks, 10 weeks or so from the extension that it was to now I have a paper saying that I've been sent over to a tax collection agency, which is now going to my credit. And I was hoping the lady was here that was in charge of doing this, but I guess she's not. She's not here? So she actually told me on the phone that the board of directors recommended her to do this. Is that true or not true?
Not to my knowledge.
Well, she's passing the buck to you guys, I guess. Because she said, that's what she told me on the phone, is that she was told by y'all, she was recommended to go ahead and put this year, what was due in March, and extend it to May, over to a tax collection agency without prior notification of a late notice or a delinquent notice or anything like that. I don't like paying that tax, the fee for the trash, but I paid it every year. And now I've got this on my credit because she chose not to send out any kind of notice whatsoever. And is there anything anybody else can do about it other than her? Probably not. Is there anything she could probably do? Probably not. And she did tell me on the phone that she didn't think it would go to the credit report, on your credit report. But I did call them, and they told me that anything that gets turned over to a tax collection agency gets turned over to your credit report. And this is for $200. She's not here to speak, I guess, for herself. So I guess I need to take this up with her.
Correct.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, is anybody else? Last call, anybody else? Okay, if not, then we'll close the citizens' comment period. Thank you all. All right, next approval of the minutes.
Have two corrections. The first one, when Glenn was speaking, he said the school board got 7 to 8,000. The minutes said they got 7 to 8,000. And then on page 5 of the minutes, number 1, it's got Mecklenburg. It's where the turnoff that empty parking, what that's supposed to be.
Okay. Anybody else have any corrections, alterations?
We can't hear you all.
Can you hear me? Okay.
It's not going through. Not going through your mic. You gotta talk real close to it, I think.
Okay, it's on. Any other, anybody, board members have any other changes? We'll take a motion then.
Motion to approve.
Approve the second. Any further discussion? All those say aye.
Aye.
Okay, the ayes have it. Be sure I get close to your mic, I guess. All right, number 3, highway maps. First one on that is the resolution in support of the smart scale project. Everybody remembers we had 4 of those listed last meeting. Is there any further discussion on those? If there's no further discussion, we need a motion to pass those on so that Mike and Johnson can pass it along to the proper authorities.
I make a motion that we, send them forward to adopt. Second.
And we have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. Ayes have it. We'll pass that on for action. All right, does anybody have any concerns on the roads in the district?
I said, I mentioned, like it's the traffic is in the road. The lights are not working.
Anybody else have any concerns in the district?
I would have a lot of feedback calling.
Any other thing? That's not working either.
I just hear your regular voice.
My lights,
There you go.
that's
There
working.
you go.
Okay.
Okay. Does anybody have any concerns in their district?
I had one citizen call about the road at the intersection of Buckhorn Quarter and Polk Station that not on the road that's being paved, I believe, soon. I don't know when, but they certainly have made preparations. But the trucks hauling sand coming up 609 and turning onto Buckhorn Quarter now, torn up the road right there across from that intersection. I would assume that that would be fixed or patched when they pave the section of Buckhorn Quarter that's not there. They ought to pave. I would assume that they would fix that at that time, but I'll just mention it since I got a call. Thank you.
Okay, any other concerns before we move on? I just have one, the Girl Scout, the dirt road that goes by the Girl Scout camp, Governor Guard Girl Scout run needs some grading. There are some very big holes there. Anybody else? Okay, we'll go on to number 4, the monthly reports. Financial report. Does anybody have any questions about what they have? Not? Animal control? Any questions about that? Cooperative extension? Treasurer's office?
I can give you an update on the percentages of collections if you like.
We'd welcome that.
Okay, the real estate last month was 99.67%, and it's up to 99.70% now. The personal property last month was 97.73%, and it's up to 97.82%. The solid waste fee was at 81.96%, and it's up to 82.15% now. I have turned over delinquent solid waste to THCI collection agency. We have really had the solid waste money coming in since then. It's the first time it's been turned over to THCI.
All right, thank you. Any questions? Thanks for that information. Okay, solid waste quantities. Any questions there? Personnel, Mr. Johnson.
Got a number of changes to report. We had 4 employees hired during the month. Isaiah Warren, effective July the 20th in the Sheriff's Office. Annual salary, $35,213. Victoria Saunders, effective July the 20th in the Sheriff's Office, $31,939. Janiyah Bradbury, July the 20th in the Sheriff's Office, $35,213. Melissa Page Casper in the Treasurer's Office, effective August the 1st, $30,418. There were 2 employees in the Sheriff's Office who were reclassified by the State Comp Board. Jamal Hurt, effective August the 1st, annual salary $36,739. And Robert Pierce, also effective August the 1st, $43,623. There were 2 employees that were separated during the month, Ronnie Scott in the Department of Utilities, effective on August the 10th, and Stone Baker in the Sheriff's Office, effective August the 5th.
Thank you, sir. Okay, we'll move on to number 5, financial matters. A, the year-end FY 2020, August, June appropriation resolution. Anybody have any questions about that? If not, then we'll entertain a motion to approve that.
I move that the appropriation be approved.
And we have a second?
Second.
We have a second. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, no. The ayes have it. That is approved. And the bills list. Does anybody have any questions about the bills list, which are the yellow and blue sheets in your information?
I've got one question. On page 15, the Hampton Roads planning, there were 8 entries. What is that? Page 15. The number is 1-811.
What color sheet is it?
It's blue, I think. It's on the plan.
This is the breakdown for the special programs. When you approve the budget for the Planning District Commission as part of the overall planning budget, you just see one big number, but that represents a number of different programs. I can give you the breakdown of those programs later, but there are things like stormwater is a separate group. Utility specifications is another one that we have regional standards for that they write, but I can give you the breakdown for those.
Okay. Any further questions? The bill list, I guess we need a motion to pay the bills.
So moved. Second.
All right, we have a motion second to pay the bills. All those in favor say aye. Aye. It's unanimous. Okay, number 6, appointments. A, the Industrial Development Authority, the Nuisance District. This is, are you're ready to go with that?
Yeah. I'd like to suggest Tommy Potter from Sunday.
Okay, we have a second to that nomination.
Second.
Have a second. Any further discussion? All those in favor of that nomination? Aye. Aye. Okay. Second one, B, is the BCA. And there are 2 people involved there, Mr. Bradshaw and Doug Chesson. You're on.
Yes. All right, I'll start really loud. How about that? I've talked to Gary Cross about assuming this role on our Board of Zoning and Appeals, and he has graciously accepted by asking him to serve us in that capacity.
Mr. Cross has.
Yes, sir.
And I talked with Mr. Bradshaw in the Nuisance District, and he's willing to serve another term. So I guess we could get both of those in one vote. Is there a motion to accept both of those nominations?
So moved.
Second.
Second. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Okay. C, the local board of building code appeals. And we have a reappointment there, Mr. Gary Banks.
Yes. His name has 2 R's in it. I'd like to make a motion to reappoint him.
Mr. Banks, okay, is there a second?
Second.
All right, all those in favor say aye. Aye. Okay, Mr. Banks will be reappointed. The Citizen Transportation Advisory Committee. 3 members there. I can say in the Jerusalem, Mr. Ash Hudson has consented to serve again.
Randolph Cook has also,
Okay.
he's at large.
How about the Voice of Princeton?
I spoke to Mr. Bolter, and his job still not allowed him to attend the meetings. I want to appoint Chief Davis. His address is on there.
Yes, sir.
He lives at 13248 White Meadow Road, Boise. His phone number 434-658-3059.
Thank you.
Okay, I guess we get to go ahead and, okay, all 3 of those. Is there such a motion?
Motion to approve.
And second? Okay, all those in favor then say aye. Aye. Okay, that goes. Okay, we're down to E, I believe. Southampton County Community Policy and Management Team, SCCEMT. And I believe we have 2 people that have been already nominated there, Vonda Warren Lilly and Patty Story. Anybody have any thoughts on that? Anybody like to go with that?
Motion to approve.
For a second?
Second.
Okay, all those in favor say aye. Aye. Okay. We'll move on to number 7, and is Jay here? 7 was the update regarding the broadband services. Jay Brenton, President and CEO of Franklin Southampton Economic Development. And I don't see Jay anywhere. If he's not here, I guess, Mr. Johnson, we can put him on for next meeting then.
Yes, sir.
Or he might come in late.
Okay. All right, number 8. This has been a lot of discussion. Methods of school board appointment election, and you'll have in there 3 ways to do it. The school board selection committee we now have, number 1, number 2, appointment by the governing body, which is us, and number 3, the direct election by the people. So I'll open that to discussion. It's too late for us to do anything about it this year. Would you like to just table that and bring it up later within 6 months of?
But conceivably, Mr. Chairman, we don't have any direct involvement in how this completely happens. It's a separate board and it's up to the people through the referendum as indicated in our packet. I'd just be interested if it's appropriate to ask the board in reading the packet, reviewing the 3 types of selection processes, do you all have a preference? If the community was to proceed forward as they're asking questions about what do we think, do we have a preference as individuals on the board?
I think most of the counties, most of the counties and the state have elected school boards.
Yeah, I think that'd be the way to go. Move forward with election.
Hi, Mr. Faison and Mr. Jones, I believe, the board's liaison with the board of supervisors, the liaison with the school board. I'd be interested in hearing their comments on this since it was brought up. Have you any information that would help us arrive at a decision?
I don't have any particular preference, but I think that if we went to the referendum, we would consider some conference. So I have no problem with
I don't have any problem
with either way we go, it's fine with me. If you think we need to have an elected board now, then fine. But, the past 10 or 12 years, we've had, our schools have been accredited, and seems like we've been doing really well. But, if you want to change, then I'm willing to go with it.
I agree with Mr. Jones and that his efforts was the council. So I think in, apparently, that again, like I said, I have no problem staying like it is or change, but I would not be any objection to this decision put in our referendum.
Thank you, board.
Well, it seems to me that the order would be for this board to be some way notified, petitioned, or to initiate this change. This is Ms. Updike, I don't know, you've asked for a brief report and discussion regarding the methods, but that can be accomplished without any formal request to make a change. So are you asking to change from an appointment system to an elected system?
Not now, because, it will be 2021 before it can go.
Yeah, it's too late now. It's got to come to. Too late.
Yeah, I understand that. But
There was a petition, I don't know how many signatures were on it.
Just to recap, bring everybody up to speed on what was initiated by a private group of teachers and parents previously in the year. They got together and decided they wanted an elected school board. So they got with Mr. Francis at the clerk's office and did the necessary paperwork to get the petitions, the legal petitions that they needed to circulate to obtain the roughly 1,800 signatures. It's a percentage of the number of residential registered voters in the county. And they started circulating those. When they started, they only had 2 weeks. The July 15th, I believe it was, deadline to accomplish that task. I believe they have the support of the community. However, they just lack the time necessary. That's almost impossible to have obtained that many signatures in the brief period of time that was allotted for them to get them for this year's referendum on the November ballot. So that's where they were. It's certainly not a dead issue with them. I fully intend for them to revisit this for next year's ballot. The signatures they did obtain are good for a year, as Mr. Johnson indicated earlier, but they're likely going to have to start the process next year.
well, I'm of the opinion we need to wait and see what develops with the petition to move forward with some type of referendum, which is where that would lead. And
And that's one reason I wanted input from all of you all, as they come to us, this group, to know what we think is best. They look for guidance from us, even though it's not our board to dictate that to. And I was more interested in, from you all, whether or not y'all thought it would be best if they were elected at large, just like we are, or whether or not they were appointed by us. Those given the 2 options, if we were going to direct them towards one referendum or the other, which would we prefer?
I look at appointment by us as just a bigger committee. I think the most representative way would be elected and be responsible to the people that elected them. The committee, I think, is 3 that does it now, or just be a committee of 7.
well, I'm interested in what the parents have to say. And I'm assuming this petition is primarily being circulated not only among citizens of the county, but mainly parents and teachers that are directly affected by the procedure. So personally, I I'd like to wait and see what develops with this petition with regards to a referendum and where the support is coming from. So that's just where
I think that's a wise decision. Anybody have any further input on that? Yeah, I've heard pros and cons. I've heard some counties where they had difficulty getting people to run. But as far as I'm concerned, both Democratic representative, they would be to be elected. So we need to.
we'll take it up at a later date, it seems to me.
We need to take it up in plenty of time to get a referendum going, if that's the way it's going. Any further comments on that? Okay, we'll move on to number 9 then. Discussion regarding regional participation in HRTAC and HRTPO. Mr. Johnson, can you give us some history on that, please?
Certainly. Some of you may recall that during the 2013 session, the General Assembly of Virginia approved House Bill 2313, which among other things established the Hampton Roads Transportation Fund to pay for new transportation projects that were approved by the Hampton Roads Transportation Planning Organization. The sources of revenue for those transportation projects was an additional 0.7% sales tax and a 2.1% state tax on wholesale distributors of motor fuels in the Hampton Roads region. Now, these regional taxes are collected directly by the merchants at the point of sale and remitted to the Commonwealth, which in turn deposits them into the Hampton Roads Transportation Fund. So the original bill that was approved by the General Assembly defined the Hampton Roads region as embracing the counties of Gloucester, Isle of Wight, James City, and York, and the cities of Chesapeake, Hampton, Newport News, Norfolk, Poquoson, Portsmouth, Suffolk, Virginia Beach, and Williamsburg. But rather than simply signing that bill into law, Governor McDonnell presented an amendment in the nature of a substitute, which changed the definition of the Hampton Roads region to include the full limits of Planning District 23. Now, that amendment was prepared without Southampton County's prior knowledge or consent. I was made aware of that proposed amendment by a local resident 2 days before the reconvened session, and I immediately reached out to Delegate Tyler, Senator Lucas, and at the time Senator Blevins, asking them to oppose that legislation. I also contacted the Secretary of Transportation and alerted him to our opposition. To make a long story short, that was all to no avail. All 3 members of our local delegation voted in favor of the amendment, and that's how Southampton County came to be a member of what is now known as HRTAC. So while the county had belonged to the Hampton Roads Planning District Commission since 1969, it was not a member of HRTPO back in 2013 when that legislation was created. So what that did was create a taxation without representation issue. It said Southampton County would be included as part of HRTAC and would be subject to the extra tax. But we had no seat at the table at the HRTPO where the transportation priorities were developed and the recommendation for projects made. So in order to address that issue, Southampton County and the city of Franklin were subsequently granted membership in the HRTPO in 2016, which gave us a seat at that table. Absent a legislative amendment by the General Assembly, Southampton County will remain a member of HRTAC as long as it remains located in Planning District 23. Now, you may have heard that Gloucester and Surrey were not part of HRTAC, and that's true, and they are both members of HRPDC. So I included in your agenda package a copy of the Attorney General's opinion that was written to Governor McDonald back in 2013. And what that opinion says is while Surrey and Gloucester County are members of Hampton Roads Planning District, they are physically located in other planning districts. Surrey is physically located in the Crater Planning District, and Gloucester is located physically in the Middle Peninsula Planning District. So because of where they were geographically located, they were not considered part of Planning District 23 as it relates to the legislation that created HR TAC. That concludes my report, Mr. Chairman.
I understand that what we pay, what the funds are used for is to relieve congestion, and I think it's going to be many a year before we have congestion in Southampton County.
You're right.
We're left with a legislative solution that neither the citizens of Southampton County nor the board would be able to effectively change as long as the delegation supports the current code that's been enacted.
Correct.
Is that correct?
Yes, sir. This is a creation of the General Assembly, and any changes would have to be changed by the General Assembly.
Any volunteers want to go up that man? You won't get in the door, I promise you.
That's a big speech.
I think we need to table that or not.
You're not on.
You hear me now? Okay. I think we need to table it but keep it in the forefront as something to continue to look at.
I might add that I think next year is when the delegates are up for re-election. Am I right? I think it's next year. Every 2 years, I think. So as far as the board and the citizens that are here tonight, if this is of importance, then they certainly need to be contacted, because that's the only way you're going to effectively change our position in the organization.
Good point. Okay. I guess, any further discussion of this meeting is that for us? Anybody have anything further to say on that? Before we move on?
No, I just count on Linda reminding me.
Okay, we'll move on to number 10, discussion regarding renewal of real estate purchase options. This is an option on about 240 acres of land that we have out there, 242 at the industrial park.
How much of that is wetlands and how much is usable land?
I think we took 40 acres out of what they requested to, and that's all wetlands.
So if you take a look at the last page in your agenda package, there's a site plan of those parcels that was laid out by Draper 8. You can see a very small portion of the very back end of the site that abuts this 40-acre parcel that they would like removed is most likely wetlands, but the rest of the site pretty much is developable.
They have properties that would not be used for, parking areas if they take it out, because properties still.
The proffer specifically referred to that parcel. But yes, those proffers remain with that parcel until such time as they are changed.
All right, board, what do you say?
Well, I think it's to initiate another year on this contract, it's $3,000. I think was what was in our package. And I would think that would be a good move for the county to hold that for 12 more months. It doesn't obligate us to anything other than if there's an interest in it. The county certainly has the right of first refusal, and the property's already been rezoned. So I would think it would be a good idea to extend it one more year for the $3,000.
We have a courthouse to pay for, and we've lost our.
Good on.
We have a courthouse to pay for and renovations to pay for. And we've lost our 58 business corridor, and that's a lot of revenue that we've lost. I would hate to see us get into the purchase of property that we don't have a use for at the time.
Well, I agree with what you're saying, but at the same time, if there is interest, I see Mr. Brenchick has arrived, and he might be able to add a comment or two regarding this, but it would be something that he would have in hand for any business that might be looking in this direction. And it would be an advantage to have the zoning in place and the water and the sewer in place, and an industrial area already adjacent to it. So, Mr. Brenchick, have you got anything you'd like to add as to the benefits of maintaining this contract for another year?
I apologize, I stepped in here on the late side. So remind me which contract this is?
This is the one over there on the, next to the Inviva.
Oh, okay. Yeah, the Beal Farm property. Yeah, this is something that we finally got rezoned. It had been an effort that was underway for several years. I think it would probably be a shame to, now that we have it zoned, to not have a contract in place. We have had some interest as of late in some projects that we couldn't accommodate in the current parks we have. So it has allowed us to submit for projects, although we didn't win those projects. I'm not in a position to tell people how they should do their budget, but with as much time and energy that's been invested in it, I'd say you probably want to maintain that.
Go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Brenchick. Well, it appears to me that it'd be wise for the county to hold it, at least that option one more year. And if there's a prospective business that might be attracted to this area, it would be helpful to be able to speed the process up a little bit, having something in hand that's already rezoned and already has a water and sewer line. I move that we continue it one more year.
Is there a second to that?
Second.
There is a second. Okay, there's a motion to continue that for one more year for $3,000, $3,000, excuse me. And then, the second, is there any further discussion? If not, all those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, no. Looks like the ayes have it, we will hold it.
Mr. Chairman, could I get some clarification on the second issue? The owner has requested that we remove tax map 9254 from that option agreement, which is the 30-some plus acres at the very rear of the site that was not planned for development, that is was simply to be set aside as a conservation area. The owner has asked to withdraw that part from the option. And if the board is okay with that, I'd just like a motion to confirm.
So I'll make the motion to remove it.
Okay. Any discussion on the motion concerning that 30 acres?
Second.
Okay. Now, all those in favor of that motion, say aye. Aye. Opposed, no. Okay, we'll go with that. I think it's a wise idea, $3,000 to hold this for another year. I don't know what the odds are, but we spent a lot more money on other things. Jay, we're going to digress. I know you were late, but we're going to, it's okay if the rest of the board let you give your short presentation.
Thank you, I appreciate that. I actually had some car troubles on the way here and managed to do it in a spot where I didn't have cell coverage either, but I'm here now. Unfortunately, they don't have the laptop here for me to give a visual presentation, which I can do next month. But what I want to let you know is we did get the Virginia Telecommunications Initiative grant application complete. We identified an area in the county. The area in the county is north of Sedley, and the addresses it includes, there are some folks with Ivor addresses and some with Sedley addresses. And the roads that it includes are Johnson's Mill Road, Unity Road, Drake Road, Corinth Road, Mission Church Road. Altogether, there's about 25 miles, a little over 25 miles of new broadband infrastructure that will be put in. The overall cost of the project it's roughly $800,000 for the entire project, with the body grant paying for about roughly $600,000 worth of the project, and with Spectrum picking up the rest. The project scope is, it is going by 177 homes as well as 2 businesses. And keep in mind, this is kind of a first phase. As we move forward, what we're working on this fall is working with Mecklenburg Electric Cooperative, as well as Prince George and Spectrum, to hopefully by the new year have a plan in place that shows how we can roll out broadband and in what phases and timing for the entire county. And in doing so, we then can also do an estimate of what, if any, kinds of funds the county might need to come up with for matching funds for grants. So that committee will be made up of FSCDI board members, myself, Mike Johnson, and then we're asking the board if one of you wants to be a part of that committee as well. And then it could include perhaps a Southampton County staff member. But we keep that committee small. We'll have the first meeting within a couple of weeks, and we'll have monthly meetings throughout the fall and into the winter until we work out the actual plan. So keep in mind with this, this grant and this opportunity, I had two choices. I could have formed a committee and spent during the pandemic and spent 4 months coming up with plans and then be reporting to you now that we weren't able to apply for a grant because we didn't have our stuff together. Or I could go ahead, work with Spectrum, identify an area and get some broadband going and in place right away, and then take a step back and create a comprehensive strategy. So that's what we're doing. Any questions? I apologize, I did have a PowerPoint for you, and I guess I miscommunicated the need for the laptop. But what I can do is, after this meeting, send you folks a couple of documents that show you exactly where the broadband is to roll out. And actually, I can send you the actual PowerPoint, because now that you've heard me explain it, I think you can look at the PowerPoint and see the pertinent information.
What kind of time frame you gonna?
Sure. So we got our application in on time, which I think was the 17th of August. You don't learn about a grant as to whether or not you were awarded it until December. And then from the time you are awarded the grant, you have 18 months to complete the build out of the project. So it would be essentially, 18 months from January. With that said, there are other grant programs, there are other funding mechanisms, so that this fall we'll be working with that committee to identify the grant programs, the other funding mechanisms, and where we can start rollout. In some cases, we may not need any grant dollars. Specifically, perhaps with Mecklenburg and Prince George, because we're just following what their footprint already is. So while this is a relatively small project with 179 new customers, the hope is that from this point on, we'll always be in a state of applying for grants, receiving grants, and under construction for a project for the next 3 to 5 years. Yeah, I appreciate you accommodating me. So at any rate, I apologize. I will send you folks the PowerPoint, and I can give you each an individual phone call to see if you've got any questions. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. All right, we'll move on to number 11, consideration of issuance of a revenue anticipation document. This is, I think, Mr. Johnson, the usual bridge loan that we get this time of the year.
Yes, sir. We've done this each of the last 8 years to simply make sure that we've got enough cash on hand to meet all of our obligations until the tax revenues begin to come in.
I have a question. I couldn't hear what you said. I don't know if I heard this
We've issued a revenue anticipation note each of the last 8 years. This makes sure we have enough cash on hand to meet our obligations until the tax revenues begin to come in usually September, October.
Okay, well, I'm here to talk about cash revenue.
Okay, that's on this is the usual curriculum again. We've looked at, changing the taxes a couple times, collecting twice a year, and found that this is probably a lot cheaper. We usually don't spend that much money on interest. So, any discussion? If not, then we need a motion to adopt the resolution that's in your program.
I move that we adopt the resolution.
Is there a second to that?
Second.
All right. Any further discussion?
I'd like to say something.
Excuse me, let me get this done then. I don't understand what let me get this done first. Okay. What you're going to say pertaining to what, this is not a public hearing.
Oh, I thought public hearing started at 7 o'clock.
Well, unless the board wants to does the board want to hear what this young lady wants to say, we're going to go ahead. We have a motion and a second on the floor, so we're going ahead with that. All those in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed, no. The ayes have it. Okay. All right, moving right along. Ratification number 12 of the local emergency declaration, the tropical storm Ida. Any comments on that?
Can we let her speak it on the late arriving matters?
I think we could do that. We'll let you speak on, that's okay with the rest of the board. Number 16 would be late arriving matters, and when I announce that, you can get up and speak. Okay. Okay, what say you, board? We need a motion to adopt that local emergency declaration.
So moved.
Is there a second? Any further discussion on that? All those in favor say aye. Aye. Okay, so be it. We'll adopt that. Okay, number 13. Consideration of award of contract associated with the Southampton Insurrection Trail project. And there are 3 categories there: the construction engineering services, and B is the sidewalk and parking lot improvements associated with the walking trail, and C is the interactive map and smartphone. So we'll open that up for discussion. Ms. Updike, you've been very up to date on this situation. Would you like to lead that?
I've been buried under it. All of these grants are to be paid by the 221 grant and the MAP 21 grant from Virginia Department of Transportation, and we've met our local match as well. We've gotten other grants for the Rebecca Ball House, from Hampton Roads Community Foundation, from Franklin Southampton Charities, from the SV Camp Estate, the Gilbert and Betty Francis Estate, Norfolk Kiwanis, and for the Museum of Southampton History, we've gotten grants from the Camp Foundations. And this project promotes heritage tourism. Before the pandemic it did, and we had people coming from New York, Washington, D.C., and around to take our bus tour. And hopefully when our signs are up, they will take our walking tour. And we have 2 other contracts that we will be paying for through grants. One is the authentic reproduction light fixtures and sconces, and 19 signs for the walking tour, and we have money to pay for that. And we have other grants we've applied for. One, the Ford Foundation, they liked us so well, they flew our consultant to New York to give a presentation. The National Endowment for the Humanities, the Guasney Foundation, and the Cabell Foundation.
Anybody have any questions for Ms. Dunbar? Well, we got three things there. I'll let you go ahead, if there's no further discussion, and make the motions on each one in order.
Can I do that, Richard?
Yeah.
Okay.
Can we do all three at once, Richard, or we have to take it separately?
You better do them separately.
Okay.
Okay, I'll make the first motion.
Okay, for A, construction engineering inspection services.
Second.
Okay, we have a second. Any further discussion? All those in favor then, say aye. Aye. B, the sidewalk and parking lot improvements associated with the walking trail. We have a motion. Motion and second.
Second.
Okay, any further discussion on that? If not, all those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed likewise. Ayes have it. And C, the interactive map and smartphone app.
Second.
Okay, so second.
I'll make the motion.
Okay, you made the motion.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
second, Jones, okay. Any discussion on that? If not, all those in favor say aye. Aye. Unanimous. We'll go with that. Okay, good work. All right, project updates. Number 14, relocation department and community development. Ms. Lewis here. I don't know if she'd like to say anything. You're welcome to come fill us in.
Good evening, and thank you very much. We're getting all packed up and moved. We're probably 75% moved, 80% moved. Next Tuesday, we'll start out of the new office on Sharon Ponca Road. A couple of the employees will stay and work sometimes for the city of Franklin because the entire department is coming to Southampton County, except the ones who have retired. So for 30 or 60 days, there'll be some sort of agreement between the city and the county that the county will help the city of Franklin out until they get those positions moved. But we are ready to go and glad to be back in Southampton.
Any questions, Ms. Lewis? Thank you very much. Okay, B, the courthouse renovation. Did your packet, any questions about that? Like we're moving on along with that, we don't have to act on anything of that. If there are no questions, we'll go on to the C, the CARES Act funding. Anyone can give us an update on that?
Mr. Johnson has handed out, I believe, I think everybody
has one.
Mike, if you can walk us through what the committee has laid out to be considered by the board tonight.
Yes, sir. So, as you all will recall, we received 2 rounds of funding from the federal government under the CARES Act. They are in equal amounts, $1,538,237 in each round. So when you multiply that times 2, that gives you $3,076,474. Now, there are a lot of strings attached to that money. It has to specifically be used to assuage the impacts of the COVID-19 pandemic. And I had previously sent to each of you copies of the guidelines that the federal government sent down. But you all appointed a committee that included Supervisor Gillette and Cornwell to look at this and try to come up with a plan to figure out how to best use this federal money to assuage those impacts. So what you've got in front of you tonight is the outline of the proposed resource allocation. You can see there in the first group of rows that are shaded in yellow, we are required to make a certain portion of that money eligible to each of the 6 incorporated towns. So of that $3,076,000, we would suggest making available to the town of Boykins $46,718.44. Town of Branchville, $9,691.59. Town of Capron, $13,004.96. Town of Cortland, $103,211.31. Town of Ivor, $27,169.59. And Town of Newsome's $25,678.58. Collectively, that's $225,474.47 made available to the towns. Just in case you're interested how we got to those numbers, it works out to almost $88 per person. It's based on population in each of those towns. The second group is public education, Southampton County Schools. I won't go down it line item by line item, but I'll be glad to try to answer any questions. I will say that Supervisors Cornwell and Gillette met with the school board budget committee last week. That included school board members Denise Bunn, Jim Pope, and Chris Smith, as well as Dr. Shannon and their finance director, Joy Carr, and went over this information extensively. But they are requesting a grand total, at least initially, for Southampton County Schools, $1,648,958. Now, this can really be broken down into 3 very broad general categories. The first are expenditures directly related to instruction. These are things like USB drives, student supplies, calculators for grades 8 through 12. These are the scientific and math calculators. And you can see the line items listed there. The instructional expenses all total together to $267,588. The vast majority of the money deals with learning, since, as you all know, the instruction will be virtual for the first 9 weeks. This includes iPads for all children grades pre-K through 5, a total of $550,738. It also includes funding for the accessories, the stylus pens, the headphones, those kinds of things. It will further provide for 500 MiFi devices to provide internet access in areas where they have very poor coverage. Electronic textbooks for students. It also includes $251,790 for laptops for teachers and another $102,080 for laptop accessories. There are other things in smaller line items, tripods for the classrooms, technology, technical support to make sure all this distance learning goes off without a hitch. But the grand total of the technology expenditures, again, is $1,265,601. The last grouping of expenditures are things that are associated with the buildings, and even though there won't be students in the building, there will be staff and teachers coming to those buildings on a regular basis. So there are things like disinfectant sprayers, extra cleaning for the classrooms, of course, sneeze guards, and these will be available when the students return to school, and then PPE for staff. And all those items total up to $115,769. So when you take those 3 categories, the instructional expenditures, technology expenditures, and building maintenance, they all total, again, $1,648,958. If you'll flip over to page 2 in the royal blue color, you'll see there we've got a category for Southampton County Fire and Rescue. These are the volunteer fire departments and rescue squads. At this point, they put together a little bit of a laundry list of the things that would be helpful to them. That includes PPE, masks for the self-contained breathing apparatus, self-contained breathing apparatus units, maybe some portable sanitizing systems. There are some of the buildings that may need modifications and those type things. We don't have a line item list, but they have asked for a placeholder for their use in round numbers of $600,000. The plan there would be to let the entire association sort of control that $600,000. Request would come in from each respective volunteer fire department, rescue squad, be screened by the association, and then submitted to the county for reimbursement. In the red category, you see Franklin Southampton Economic Development. One of the approved uses of the funding is business grants for businesses that have been impacted by the pandemic. For whatever reason, they may have had to close for a short period of time. Maybe they had to furlough employees, those kinds of things. Mr. Brinchick and his staff put together an early business grant program that was funded from other sources. He indicated to us they could do a little bit of a redo of that program, run it for us, and make it specifically available just to businesses in Southampton County. And we have earmarked $100,000 for that. We've earmarked for Southampton County buildings and grounds, which includes the Southampton Office Center, the courthouse, the library, the community development building. There may be other buildings in the future. These are things like sneeze guards, decals on floors to remember to social distance, extra custodial assistance for cleaning, for instance, in the courtrooms, those kinds of things, temperature stations for people entering the courthouse. So in round numbers, we have earmarked $75,000 for that. And then we have earmarked for telework for the Treasurer's Office, Commissioner of the Revenue's Office, Clerk of the Circuit Court's Office, and the accounting staff, about $27,000. These are for laptops in case we have an employee in those small offices that is exposed and we have to send people home to quarantine. This allows them to be able to be productive from home and continue to work. These offices have very small staff, so if we get one staff member exposed, there's a possibility we may have to send several of the whole group to work remotely for a period of time. So that's what this money is intended to support. When you subtract all those categories out, that leaves about $400,041.53. We're suggesting that you leave that unallocated at this point. Let's wait about 60 days. Let's see what the game plan is for Southampton County Schools for the second 9 weeks. That will help us better utilize these last remaining funds moving forward. We would hope to come back to you with a recommendation on that last $400,000 at your meeting in October, which would give us about 60 days to get it spent. That concludes my report.
Thank you very much. Very good. Any further questions on that before we move on? Thanks for your work. All right, number 15.
Mr. Chairman, it's probably not written in your agenda book, but can we get a motion on the allocation of the CARES Act funding?
We certainly can. Have a motion on that? Have a motion? Second? Any further discussion? Not all those in favor say aye. Aye. It's unanimous. Okay, moving on to 15, request for agricultural disaster declaration. You have that information in your packets in local mail now. Notices, anybody have any questions about the notices? Correspondence, anybody have anything to talk about there?
Back to the request for agricultural disaster. I think FSA has decided to wait until the crops you have yields to determine the disaster.
Okay.
Until the crops are harvested.
Well, thank you. Any further comments on that? All right, correspondent articles of interest. If not, ma'am, we're making a little room for you at the end of the meeting here. If you would like to come up to the podium, give your name and address. seem to be very adamant about it, so we're going to go along with it.
Yes, I do appreciate your consideration. My name is Pam Clark. Not all disabilities are visible. You know I was disabled, I was missing my leg. But I had a really good job that I really loved. I have FBI security clearance, and I traveled all over the country. And I was bringing home $750 a week. I could take care of my kids, which I had to raise on my own because I was married to a loser who is now dead. But anyway, after I was in Brooklyn, New York, and we were hit in the rear, I was in the back seat working on the computer. I traveled from school to school all over the country assessing children. I absolutely loved it. That took me out. I can't, everything's up here, but I might remember it in 5 minutes. I might remember it 5 weeks from now. I don't know, because I'm disabled. And before that, I had a brain aneurysm. So that wasn't good. I worked at the jail and multiple concussions. So that last car accident kind of took me out of the picture. Well, it takes 3 years before Social Security disability finally approves your disability. And then instead of $750 bring home a week, I got around about $650 a month. So every year I could look forward to going to court, to getting a subpoena in the mail for this $200 trash bill. Now, I can't tell you how much stress and anxiety this causes to people that are already under an enormous amount of stress and anxiety. And then this year I get this. Now, when I went to court, of course, it was always dismissed. I mean, I didn't know it. I would go in, I would show my paperwork. I didn't know it. And I said, well, what about all those other years? And they said, they're not old enough yet. Okay, so I have to wait till they're old enough. Total waste of the time of the woman working down there at the county building. Total waste of the court's time. Total waste of my time. It's $200. You think there's a secret society out here of disabled elderly people that just don't want to pay to take their trash to the dump? So I get turned over to this collection agency. Almost $1,000 for those years that I asked them to address them. Almost $1,000. Do you know what this does to someone that lives on Social Security disability? I want this off my back. When I got divorced, my ex-husband, I think you were his attorney, but I'm not sure, left me with a credit score of $311. $311. I mean, you know what I mean. That's what my credit score was. I worked like hell. I went without to build it up to what it is now, over 700. And I do not want this on my credit report. Something that I rightfully do not owe. I'm not required to file income tax. That tells you right there. And I don't want to be drugged down. She actually called me on the phone and told me, well, you got an inheritance. I'd like to know from who, and I'd like to know where it is. I didn't get an inheritance. When my former husband died, my youngest child, my daughter, who was still in college, paid for his funeral. I didn't get any money from him. What are you guys going to do about this? And why? More importantly, why are you doing this to people? You know what it's like to get something like this in the mail when you don't owe it? That's like asking me for a month and a half of my income. Oh, and I didn't mention, he was such a shitty guy. I owed 2 years on my house. Judge ordered him to make the payments. He didn't make the payments. The same day they were going to sell my house on the courtroom steps, when I still had 2 kids there, thank God, refinanced for 30 years. I bought that house in 1989. I'm still paying for it. That takes half my check right there. And you're coming after me for $200?
Okay, I think we've got the idea. Does anybody have any questions or anything like that at this lady before we adjourn?
Can anybody tell me why you're doing it?
I think we need to direct it back to the treasurer.
And I called these people, and I called the minute I got this. They directed me to Cynthia. I called Cynthia. She directed me to y'all. All she can do is enforce the policies that y'all make up. This is a bad policy. When you go into court.
Listen, I don't need to cut you short, but there's nothing this board can do about that. And unless somebody here has an idea where to redirect this, but I think.
And so to the day I die, this is going to keep accumulating interest on something that I was entitled to anyway.
Well, we're not able to answer that question. That's out of our realm.
Who is? Where do I go?
Does someone?
Can I say something? I would like to make a suggestion.
I'm sorry.
I think that Cindy is a very, and I work with her at an international paper, and on a different level, but I work with budgets, and she knows that, the entire bill repair budget. Cindy is very, very qualified to make discretionary decisions for this county in cases like this lady. She's not asking for a privilege, but she's asking for an exception. And I think that you all need to discuss, and it may not be tonight, but I feel like it should be privately, granting Cindy the authority to make exceptions on a case-by-case basis. I don't know that that would work, but I know that in a confidential environment, she is highly qualified to make discretionary decisions. I've worked with this lady, I know what she does, and I was managing for my manager a $47.5 million repair budget every year. This lady helped me, and she's very qualified to write off $200.
Okay, we'll take that under advisement.
Thank
you. We will take that under advisement. Anybody have any further comment on that?
Ma'am, if I might, the board board previously, and I don't remember the year, I think it's 2012, enacted the $200 trash fee. And that was approved and enacted. The treasurer is a constitutional officer of the county, being elected by the citizens, as are the board. But the board does not have the discretion to run the office of the treasurer. That's solely her domain. And so again, I would recommend that you revisit the treasurer's office. I don't know all the facts about the timeline and the dates that you're showing on that piece of paper. But that's something to be brought to the attention of the treasurer. And if there is any remedy or satisfaction to be gained out of your plight, it would have to start with the treasurer's office.
I think that's a very good idea. I think that answers your question. It has to go back to the treasurer's office.
Well, I cannot dismiss that. She has the option, since she's disabled, of applying for relief through the solid waste program, which she has done, but she did not provide some of the information, did not want to provide some of the personal information.
Well, that's something that, to put an end to this, if I could, Mr. Chairman, that's something that has to happen in a private setting, in the treasurer's office. It does not need to be kind of an open air discussion tonight at the board meeting.
I couldn't agree more, and that's exactly the way I feel about it.
Okay, that discussion is over and shut then. I think we've let enough in here. I think with this end of discussion right here. Sir?
I would like to know when the next meeting is and where, because I showed up at the administration building at 6:30. I thought I was here for citizens time. I was here before 7. So when is the next meeting and where? What time?
Next meeting will be 4th Tuesday next month, here, 6 o'clock.
The public part is it?
Yes, sir.
Okay, I think we've settled everything we need to settle tonight. Is there a motion for adjournment? So moved. We are adjourned.